Hey, Brenda. Connie, I missed a name. Pam, Janice, Marcy, Iceman, G Freak, Pair 07, KKPH, Pam, Jovian. Hey, loved your interview with Sheila Zielinski, Dave. That was great. If you missed Praying Medic's interview, go to his timeline and check out his interview with Sheila Zielinski. Good perspective. Jilly! This is my friend, Richard Shepard. He's playing the guitar in the gypsy jazz group Amaranouche. Amaranouche is a gypsy jazz group that, you're welcome, Dave, that has performed here at the farm and been on numerous Dream Farm radio shows. By the way, now that you have all this extra time on your hands, or do you? Are you filling it up? Do you feel like we're filling it up maybe a little bit, you guys? You go to dreamfarmradio.org. I have 8 years of incredible shows of music that does not fit into a box. If you don't think you like jazz music, you're going to love Dream Farm Radio because it's all these shapes and sounds of other types of music that play well in the sandbox with jazz. Top musicians from all over the world have performed right here. And these are these shows that are airing on national public radio stations across the country. And I love Amaranouche. This thing in the background, by the way, bump, 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 chunk, chunk, is called, you ready? Le Pompe. Le Pompe. That's the part of gypsy jazz from the Manouche people of France. And you got to have that ripping, swinging bass. And the pomp is what makes the whole thing come together. And this is Richard Shepard on the lead guitar. There we go, Iceman there, Brenda. Working, good. All right, you guys. Time for a little joy. The Pomp, Le Pomp. They spell it P-O-M-P, Le Pomp. Anyways, you know what, Richard? Hey, Richard. I'm going to have to tell you. I'm going to tag you later so you know you're in this. But I love Richard. You know I love about Richard? I love, you do the pomp every day. Hey, mija. I love how Richard is an atypical thinker. He's outside the box and he's a musician and he's challenging so much of the culture of musicians that are kind of caught in an old paradigm. So you go, Richard Shepard. We love your music. And let's shout out to Greg Harvey and, you know, Mary Grace did an awesome parody of a Hollywood star playing a pipe, a tin whistle. How was that? This lady, Leanne, did on the Scope Train. Yeah, really, no red roses. Leanne did a Madonna parody that was hysterical. There you go. She put herself in the corner surrounded by all these weird flowers and these dark lines under her eyes, and it was crazy good. She was hilarious. And I was doing as straight up an Ellen as I could. I mean, her walk outside. And then I found out, you guys, just so you know, we have a Corona typewriter. So what does that say? Does that... I might be part of the cabal. So I have this Corona typewriter, and now it has a big piece of paper in it that says "We are screwed," and that's going to stay the way. That's going to be the installation of the Corona typewriter in our home with all of our antiques like never before to mark this time, this really weird time. And our family also did a PSA, a 1950s keep your distance PSA, and I'm going to play that tomorrow night when I release a brand new Presence Jazz song tomorrow night with the band. It's definitely got a more 2-5-1 thing. If you're a musician, you know the progression 2-5-1, is really important in jazz music. So we got a 2-5-1 thing happening with a brand new piece of worship music that's definitely jazz oriented. Tomorrow night at 7. This is Roger, this is a Maranouche. It is a Manouche music, and they call themselves a Maranouche because they're from America. All right, so guys, if you have not tapped into the joy of this season, it's time to get right into the joy. It's time to get into the joy of stepping out of our analysis and thank you, Sparkling. It's time to get out of the analysis paralysis and even some of the yammering. It's an exciting time. I mean, the possibilities are endless. I think, though, if we're not careful to step into the joy and the rest, that we're going to miss the fact that we could immerse ourselves in a lot of stuff that keeps us from being present. And you guys, your fear-free experience is in the present. It's in the moment. If you go back there, apart from the healing of God, and your unresolved stuff is going to trigger you, right? And if you go into the forward of what could happen, you're going to miss the right now. I mean, we are going to tell our kids that we lived through the reset of the whole earth. And like many of you have been saying, you know, we can't do this every time there's an epidemic or a flu outbreak or something. We can't do this. This has to stop. This has to be a one-off. We are stepping into so many unprecedented things. Can you allow yourself in the midst of all the discomfort to just kind of let the bubbling up of the timing of God come up for you? Can you allow yourself to take just kind of chill and go, wow, I'm here? You know, John Paul Jackson said something interesting once. He said that God had saved, check this out, God had saved the very best of the bloodlines, creepy, for this season on the earth. You know, some of the things we're learning that is so disquieting is this idea of bloodlines that are given over to darkness, where there literally has been generational occult, generational wickedness, and people staying within a family business of evil, corruption, trafficking, bloodletting, darkness. I mean, it's a thing. It's a thing. Of course, you're not going to hear it in the mainstream news, but all you have to do is begin to open your eyes, and you begin to see that there are certain patterns and certain generations and certain things being inherited down and passed down. There's this bloodlines thing, this 13 Illuminati bloodlines thing. It's a deal. It's a thing. Then you see in Scripture that Jesus, Yeshua, had to be exactly in the bloodline of David. Next. And he had to come at exactly the right time to fulfill exactly everything he did with God's calendar. And it meant that every father and mother that begat and begat and begat were part of the process of him being here right where he needed to be here. Here's my favorite. Well, according to John Paul Jackson, and I tend to believe this, God is watching over the families and the bloodlines of his people, who he's positioned. And of course, the ultimate bloodline is Jesus. So when you come into the family of God through the sacrifice of Christ on the cross, you become part of that timely family that is here in this hour. But God has been saving something special, a certain group of people that could handle having their world upended, a certain group of people that could have all of their cherished presuppositions about culture, about media, about academics, about government, banking, world systems completely thrown in the air. Let's take a little look. Do you think in your parents' day, my parents' day, they could have possibly handled learning about some of the things we've been learning about and rethinking so much stuff? Do you think that they could possibly have taken in the reality that a lot of what we've been told and how we've been controlled is not exactly how the world works. We are a people that have been shaped for this hour, and here we find ourselves. And apparently, God has made sure to save something for us and us for something. And we're right in the middle of it. That's who we are. That's what we're called to do and be. And I want you to take your worst scenario. I want you to say, they're coming for your food. They're coming for your protective devices. They're coming in their armored vehicles. You're not going to be able to get out of the house. I want you to take your very worst scenario that is floating around in your mind, and I want you to just sit with it right here and imagine that God thought enough of you and me and what He's doing in us to place us strategically at a time for our good and for the good of what He's doing in the earth, because He's not giving up His planet. He is not giving up His planet. He's not going away without a fight. The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. And this whole thing from day one has been about a fight of who's going to control the planet. Is it going to be Satan and the people that he deceives? Or is it going to be the sons and daughters of people who walk with God and display what heaven looks like and bring goodness into the earth? It's really that simple. It's a war for the planet. And God has allowed us to be here in the midst of it. And right here in the moment is where your joy is. Right here. I can feel it. I can feel it. Let it get to you, man. This is where your joy is. You are made for this hour. You are preserved for this hour. You have something to give. Even if you're falling back into some paranoid thought structures and freakouts, this is the hour to shed all that stuff. As I've been talking about, look, if you're not already solid right now, this is your time. This is the time when everything you and I have relied on that is just not going to cut the mustard is coming to the surface. What I just had a talk with a friend, and there's a lot of upheaval in her family, and wounds from the past, and a kid that needs a safe place to stay who got integrated into the quarantine late and now can't find a place within the family to rest. And I mean, crazy stuff. And God is allowing every unmet need and assumption within this family to surface as they try to work out this, and as this one person works out this deep sense of rejection, and another family member has something rise up in them. You know, the you always and you never kind of language. Guys, that's going to be coming up in your families right now because there's no place to run. There's no place to hide. I can feel it. I like space. I like to have my quiet time, and, you know, my husband does his thing and then I do my thing, and we have this space to avoid what's in our hearts. And now we're here. We're in each other's way. We're walking all over each other. We're managing this thing. And this is going to bring up all of our attitudes. And it's going to bring up all of the times we feel God screwed us over. And it's going to bring up bad theology. If your theology is doom and freaking gloom, if your theology is God's just going to give up the earth to a great falling away and then we're all going to slide into deep darkness in the tribulation period, that is not going to survive, because there's something breaking on the other end of this thing. This whole thing is the biggest global opportunity we have ever had to see things from a different perspective, to deal with what hasn't been dealt with, and to cast off the old stuff, and right now to step into joy. Because in His presence is what? Fullness of joy. And where's His presence? It's in the reality of a tabernacling heart. heart that says, I can't control that. I can't control that. I can't control that. But I can learn to sit here and be the object of my Father's love. And you know what? No matter how traumatized you are or how freaked out you are, that is a learnable skill. Did you know that? That's learnable. I was horrendous at it because I had low-grade anxiety all the time. Sitting still was awful. I think I've told you this, we lived in Southern California, in San Diego area, and I felt like, oh my gosh, I have a responsibility. There's a beach there, and I gotta go sit on it because that's what people do. And that's really what I thought. And I was so anxious and upset that every time I'd guilt myself into going to the beach every once in a while. And then I'd get there and I'd sit there do one of those leg foot things where you're like, okay, water. I see water. Yeah, water, waves. Oh yeah, it's kind of sparkly. Sun. Yeah, I got that. Oh look, grandma and child walking down the street. Oh, that's really sweet. Yeah. God made the water. It's blue. Great. Are we done now? And then I felt guilt and shame for not being able to enjoy my time with God because I was in such upheaval. But my friends, it was at times when I could have gone into my addiction. You know, when you feel that anxiousness creep over you, you feel it creep in. And you have this gut response to run into your coping behavior, right? And there's sometimes when it becomes clear to you that if you rush toward that coping behavior, that you're actually not going to feel good there either. You get these moments where you go, come on, Richard Shepard and Ameranoush. Ameranoush. Ameranouch. There are moments of clarity where you realize everything you've done before isn't gonna make it better, and you're stuck with yourself in your anxiousness, and that becomes your biggest opportunity. It's in that moment when you're sitting across from that family member that's driving you crazy that you can't get away from because we're all in this together. It's in that moment when the stock ticker thing is upsetting you. It's in those moments, and that is the nowness and nearness of God that we must develop the capacity for. So don't be discouraged. Take it in 5-minute intervals, 5-minute joy bursts. Can you do that? Can you just set your watch or your clock? Now, I've given you, by the way, so many things in so many scopes about so many aspects of brain retraining and healing and inner healing and confrontation and dealing with risk and not being in procrastination and avoidance. But now I'm going to give you your 5 minutes, your 5-minute joy burst. Listen, if you're an anxious, upset person, I'm going to tell you that if you can open the portal and receive 5 minutes of God's goodness, even if say you're this thick with your old stuff, but there's this much room at the top of your cup for God. I know what it's like as an anxious person to be glad I got that much of God I didn't have before. And it matters because, you see, in His presence, those are eternal moments that will last forever. Did you know that prayer is eternal? Did you know of all the things we could be doing in the earth that will not matter tomorrow, one thing that will matter forever are moments spent with God, praying for others. And when we pray, those things go out into the atmosphere, and they're out there forever and ever and ever. And 5 moments in His presence, learning and stretching our capacity for joy right now to say, I don't know, this whole place, look, it's all going to hell in a handbasket. Maybe, I don't know, sometimes it feels that way. I can't control this. There's no way out of this. Wow, I'm either gonna crawl up in a little fetal position and freak out, or I'm gonna laugh. I'm gonna laugh and say, I can't believe I'm living through this. I can't believe God is gooder than this and bigger than this and crazier than this and more amazing and victorious, you need your 5 minutes joy bursts. And you have to train yourself to do it. You have to train yourself. You have to grow into it. You have to learn it. Everything good in God's kingdom is learned. It's learned and it's practiced. It's invested in. It's sown into. And I think the beauty of that is because we get to go, wow, God and I planted that together. You know? Mike Bickle said one time that he was washing the dishes and his 6-year-old kid came up or whatever and said, Dad, I wanted to help, and the kid made so much mess, bubbles everywhere, water everywhere. I mean, the dishes were just all over the place. It would have been so much more efficient if Mike had done them by himself, but he works alongside his kid. They do the dishes, and then Mike is cleaning up after the kid, and then when they're all done and sitting in the rack and nice and neat and it's okay, orders out of chaos, his son goes, Mom, look, I did the dishes. And Mike was cracking up and he goes, that's what prayer is like. That's what time with God is like. It's messy and it's uncomfortable and it's frustrating, and we wake up with ourselves every day in the moment and going, oh Lord, and you're just about ready to have some sweet moment with him, and you start thinking about something else, right? And then you come back and it's this messy process, but in the end we go, look what God and look what I did, God. I spent time with you. I helped. I planted. I invested. I was with you. I grew, didn't I? Didn't I grow, God? I grew. Guys, this is our hour. This is our hour. It's not just an hour to freak out. It's an hour to be in joy and to realize that he chose you for this time and this season. He knew all of the DNA factors that were going to make sure you were in the earth at this time. He did all the recalculating route work in people's life to make sure that in this moment, in his oversight outside of time, you and I are sharing this moment. We've been prepared for this. We've been created for this. This is our hour to shine and to do amazing things. Don't miss it. Don't miss it. There's so much possible for you, so much creative thinking. Limitations, my friend, is the greatest source of creativity. Just tell your kid no, and you'll notice this. When I have a very tactile kid, a very kinetic kid, and he would be the kid at the table who, if we had candles on the table, would be peeling them apart with the wax and spilling it down. He'd be the kid flipping the fork the whole time. He'd be the kid, who's like, and I'd say, Christian, no bouncing right now. And he'd go, well, so he's doing this. And I go, no bouncing. And he'd go, I'd say, no tapping. And he'd go, and I go, no waving. and he'd go, and then no flopping. Because my no was specific. But he looked for every opportunity to do every other thing that could have been possible. It wasn't, in this kid's case, it wasn't rebellion. It was creativity. It was like, wait a minute. She didn't say throbbing, did she? Because I'm throbbing. I could throb right now. Wow. She didn't say throbbing. She said tapping and thumping and bumping. She did not mention anything whatsoever about throbbing. God, there's some limitations that have come upon you right now, and those are actually your biggest opportunity for creative thinking. You look around and you go, well, I couldn't get this at the store, but look what I have. I got this, and this. What can I make? Well, I'm out of toilet paper, but I have dryer sheets. I have, I can't go out there, but I can do this. And my friends, when you're busy and you are in a rut and you are being controlled by cycles of media and work and school and anxiety, very often you lose your creativity because you subjugate yourself to a robotish version of your life. This is the way it is. This is the way it's always going to be. But you'll find that in those moments, those bursts of creative energy where there are certain limitations presented to you, but you're thinking, but what if oh, what if oh yeah, let's do that. Like, okay, so in this PSA thing that our family did, which I'm going to play tomorrow night, and Greg played in the Scope Train. That happened because somebody walked in the room and was playing the Wii music from the Wii theme from long ago. And then another member of the family walked in and went, oh yeah, this guy does remixes of stuff. So we put on the Wii thing. There was a dubstep Wii theme. And then out came this 1950s Wii thing. And all my families were kind of coming in and out, and I go, hey, that sounds like a 1950s kind of PSA thing. What if we did a 50s version of, this whole quarantine thing? And then another family member came in and went, yeah, do this. And then the next thing you know, I was running up to the top of the stairs, getting out my 1950s cocktail dress from the antique store. And then my daughter grabbed the crinoline. We were putting that on underneath, and then she grabbed her antique thing, and then we're running around the house grabbing props, and we were thinking, oh my gosh, it'd be hilarious. And the next thing you know, it was a free for all of people just going, yeah, and what about this, and what about this, and what about this? And however many hours later, then my husband comes home. And we're like, Dad, we need you to do this. You got to have a pipe, and you got to have this kind of clothes. And we were rattling through the house, grabbing everything we could possibly think of that would make the thing. And it was up free for all. And it was all based on the limitation of having time we never would have had, hanging out, listening to something we never would have listened to if it hadn't been for this moment. And you know what? Even if you're struggling for the quiet joy burst, you can also enjoy the creative joy burst of solving a problem. This time is going to make us very creative, and one of the things that has been prophesied is we're going to see solutions come up like we have never seen before. And you are that solution, and you are that person who gets right in this moment to have a joy burst, to set your timer and go, I'm going to have 5 minutes in the presence of God, thanking Him that I have everything I need right now. I'm here, He's here. And from that, it enlarges. It starts concentric circles of the I'm good, I'm loved. Allow yourself to be the object of His affection for 5 minutes. 5 minutes at a time, 10 minutes to let the joy burst into you. You were made for this hour. There's no question. We are living through. And think about it, in another generation when they had to deal with a world darkness and dominion, World War II, our forefathers had to get up and storm the beaches of Normandy. We're just being asked to sit on our couches. But there's so much more. Oh, so much more we can do. So, anyways, I am going to tomorrow night release another video of music, and I will play the PSA. If you want to see it, I want to encourage you. My son worked so hard. He's an epic pro filmmaker, media guy, and he directed the whole thing and did the editing. If you want to see it, go to, I'll put it in here. If you go to YouTube and look up United We Funny, making comedy great again. If you go to United We Funny on YouTube, he would love it if you shared it. And it's the Keeping Your Distance PSA 1950s thing, and it really is fun. And he asked me to help get the word out as much as I could. You guys are awesome. You're amazing. And again, if you want some practical group help, join My Fear Free Life group on Facebook. Join in. We're doing a pass over that fear challenge with a series of specific things we're doing together each day to keep consistent. It's the consistency of your next action into truth that is going to change your brain and help bring healing to what's triggered you. So that's what I got. I will see you guys tomorrow night at 7. We'll have a ball, won't we? And thank you guys all for everything you're doing. And this is really weird. I have to bring it up again. It all comes back to me from when I was watching Praying Medic on Periscope, and he had this dream that there were these people who, other people who needed to do shows, and I was like, yeah, not happening. I'm not doing one. No, no way. That is so not God. And he said it a couple of times. You are welcome. He said it a couple of times, and every time he said it, he told the dream 2 or 3 times. I was like, well, not me, right, Julie? Right? Not me. Not going to be me. And then one day the Lord said, Julie, you're hiding. And I went, Urgh. But I do have to tell you, on my very first Periscope, I did a Dream Farm Radio Periscope. And I guess the phone was like this. Because sure enough, right in my chat was this guy who said, you have the hugest nostrils in the whole world. I was like, you don't understand. I'm new to Periscope, and that's so mean. Now I'm like, dude, check them out. Check them out, all right? And you guys are doing the same thing. Thank you so much. Thank you, Greg. You really are the morning drive time guy that gets us all together, makes us feel like we're not alone. And Julie with the devotions, and Mary Grace with her thoughtful commentary, and Andrea Joy with her exciting. Andrea's like always, just sparkling. And of course, Dave, we love your even keel. How good is that? Guys, go do something that scares you. Could it be that sitting quietly and expecting to step into joy instead of condemnation, guilt, and shame is where you need to go? And if any of that condemnation, guilt, and shame shows up, that's your opportunity to get some more of him in that healing place, right? How about that? Can we do that together? I will see you guys tomorrow. I might even do a little interview with the actors in the PSA. Would you guys like that? Would you like if I brought the fam in and we did a little interview tomorrow night about the crazy goings on? My son, Jean-Marc Ledoux, is the film guy, and he's got some great work out there. But check out United We Funny, Making Comedy Great Again on YouTube, and he's going to build that up also. All right, I love you guys. I do. Isn't that weird? It's good. I'll see you tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight